You know how every new technology kind of bursts onto the scene,
Hmm.
and it brings with it, well, a whole new set of hopes for what it can achieve, but also maybe a fair amount of anxiety about what it might fundamentally change.
Oh, absolutely. It's a pattern we see again and again.
Think back to ancient times, right? When writing was first invented, some people worried it would, erode our memories.
Yeah, the idea that we'd become too reliant on the written word.
And then later, the printing press. I mean, revolutionary as it was, it faced objections that it would lead to a decline in, like, genuine intellectual engagement.
Superficial reading, maybe?
Exactly. Even calculators, much more recently, prompted concerns, didn't they? That students would just lose their fundamental arithmetic skills.
Definitely remember those debates, taking away the need for mental math.
Well, the latest, and you could argue maybe the most profound frontier in that ongoing conversation, is generative AI. Tools like ChatGPT, Copilot, DLE, so many others now. They're rapidly weaving themselves into the very fabric of our daily work, from drafting emails to generating really complex code.
It's everywhere, pretty much overnight, it seems.
So today we are taking a deep dive into some truly fascinating new research.
Okay.
It really zeroes in on a crucial, maybe often whispered question. What exactly is GenAI doing to our critical thinking abilities?
That is the big question, isn't it?
Are these tools making us sharper, more efficient thinkers? Or are we perhaps offloading too much, maybe even dulling some of our cognitive edge?
And what's fascinating here, as you said, is that this isn't just another philosophical debate or some kind of speculative what-if scenario.
Right, it's based on actual data.
Exactly. This new survey offers compelling empirical evidence. It was gathered from over 300 knowledge workers.
Yep.
And it provides a direct window into how these professionals are actually experiencing and, importantly, perceiving the day-to-day impact of GenAI on their critical thinking skills.
So what they feel is happening to their thinking.
Precisely. We'll explore the specific moments when and how they choose to engage their critical thinking with these tools. And perhaps most importantly, how the effort involved in thinking critically is shifting, sometimes in, well, quite unexpected ways.
Our mission then, for you, our curious listener, is to really pull out the most important, actionable nuggets from this extensive research. We'll delve into real-world examples that illustrate these shifts, uncover some truly surprising findings that might challenge your assumptions.
Yeah, there are definitely a few of those.
And ultimately break down what this all means for how you use AI in your professional and maybe personal life, and even how future AI tools should be designed to best serve, human cognition.
It's got implications for users and developers alike.
Okay, let's unpack this then. So before we really dig into the fresh data, let's ground ourselves, maybe just for a minute, in a little historical context.
Good idea.
The paper itself brilliantly points out that concerns about technology eroding our cognitive faculties are, well, they're nothing new under the sun, are they?
Not at all. It's a tale as old as innovation itself, really.
Yeah, like you mentioned earlier, Socrates, way back when, apparently worried that writing things down would make people forget how to rely on their innate memory.
Right, making them dependent on external aids, scrolls, rather than their minds, that sort of thing.
And centuries later, Gutenberg's printing press, when that burst onto the scene, ushering in mass-produced books, widespread literacy, well, similar objections were raised.
That it would lead to a decline in genuine intellectual engagement.
Exactly. Maybe even making people superficial readers. And then, in more recent memory, think about the calculator.
Right.
Many educators worried intensely that it would stop students developing fundamental arithmetic skills, basically taking away the need to do mental math.
We definitely saw that play out.
So this history frames a pretty crucial question for us today, doesn't it? Is generative AI simply another iteration of this long-standing pattern of technological anxiety? Or is there something uniquely different, maybe more profound, happening now?
And the study brings to the forefront a concept that's incredibly relevant here, the irony of automation.
Okay, tell us about that.
Well, it's a phenomenon that's been observed in various fields, aviation, manufacturing, where technology takes over the routine tasks.
Right.
The core idea is that by automating these regular, predictable operations, technology can ironically deprive the human user of the consistent practice and engagement needed to maintain their sharp judgment and cognitive skills.
Ah, I see. It's like a muscle that weakens if you don't use it regularly.
Exactly. If an automated system handles the everyday, straightforward stuff, the human operator is then left mainly with the complex, non-routine tasks, the exception handling scenarios.
Go.
But, and this is the irony, if they haven't been continually honing their skills on the routine work, those cognitive muscles might be, well, atrophied, leaving them maybe ill-equipped or even unprepared when those truly difficult exceptions arise.
Because they've lost the reps, the practice of routine problem solving.
Precisely.
So if AI handles the mundane, all the grunt work of drafting an email, summarizing a document, maybe generating basic code, are we then less prepared for those truly challenging exception-handling moments? The really complex problems that demand nuanced human judgment and, original thought. It really does feel like we might be losing those critical cognitive repetitions.
It's a valid concern. And to truly understand this dynamic and to measure its impact, we need a common language, right? An agreed-upon way to talk about what critical thinking actually means in this fast-evolving context.
Okay, so how did the researchers define it?
Well, for this deep dive, they adopted a widely influential and I think very practical framework, Bloom's taxonomy of educational objectives.
Bloom's taxonomy. I remember that from somewhere.
Yeah, it's pretty well known. It categorizes learning objectives into 6 hierarchical types, and it gives us a clear lens to understand the different facets of critical thinking that knowledge workers engage in.
So what are those levels? Can you walk us through them?
Sure. At the foundational level, you've got knowledge. This is simply recalling facts or basic concepts, just remembering information as it was given.
Like retrieving a date or a definition?
Yeah. Then you move up to comprehension. This is about understanding and interpreting ideas, being able to explain something in your own words, grasping its meaning.
Got it. Understanding what you know.
Higher still is application. This is where you use that knowledge to solve problems in new situations, taking what you know and putting it into practice in a novel context.
Applying it. Makes sense.
And beyond that, you ascend into the, let's say, deeper analytical skills. Analysis involves breaking down information into its parts, understanding relationships between those parts, identifying causes or underlying structures.
Okay, really dissecting things.
Then comes synthesis. This is about combining diverse elements to form new meaning, creating something original or unique from different pieces of information or ideas.
Building something new from the pieces.
And finally, right at the top, is evaluation. This is really the peak of critical thinking. Judging ideas or the quality of something based on specific criteria, essentially making an informed, reasoned judgment about its worth, its validity, or its applicability.
That framework gives us such a clear and, like you said, actionable lens to examine exactly how generative AI is interacting with these different levels of thought for, busy knowledge workers, not just in some abstract academic setting.
Absolutely. It's about how these powerful tools are potentially changing the very fabric of how we think and work day to day.
So what specifically motivated this study then? Was there a particular problem they were trying to address?
Well, one key motivation that drove this specific study was a prior and frankly rather concerning observation, the phenomenon of mechanized convergence.
Mechanized convergence. Okay, what's that?
It refers to the tendency for users who are working with generative AI tools to produce a less diverse set of outcomes for the same task compared to those who work without the tools.
Less diverse outcomes. So everyone's work starts looking the same.
Kind of, yeah. Imagine a group of marketing professionals, right? Tasked with writing a catchy slogan for a new product. If they all use the same GenAI tool, their final slogans, while maybe efficient to produce, might start to look remarkably similar.
Even if they started with different ideas.
Even if they initially had diverse creative ideas, yeah, the tool might push them towards a sort of common denominator.
So if everyone is essentially asking the same AI, the same kind of question, they might all get very similar answers. And then, here's the key bit. Just accept them without much critical thought.
That's the worry.
Which could lead to a kind of creative or intellectual echo chamber, maybe, where originality and diverse perspectives start to dwindle.
Precisely. And this lack of output diversity has, quite naturally, been interpreted by some as a deterioration of critical thinking.
Right, a sign that users are just taking what the AI gives them without enough scrutiny.
Exactly. A worrying sign. However, this study argues that output diversity, while observable, is actually a flawed proxy for genuinely measuring critical thinking. Well, think about it this way. A user might critically judge an AI output, meticulously review it, consider alternatives, and then, after careful deliberation, decide not to edit it.
Because they genuinely think it's the best version.
Right. They believe it's the best possible version for their specific needs. In that scenario, the critical thinking, the internal reflection, the rigorous judgment, the cognitive effort, it's entirely invisible if you're just looking at the final output.
Ah, okay.
Hmm.
The thinking happens internally,
Yeah.
but the output doesn't change.
Exactly. So this survey was designed specifically to directly measure knowledge workers' perceptions of critical thinking, what they actually felt they were doing cognitively, rather than trying to infer it just from the final product.
That's a really crucial distinction. So to get at these nuanced perceptions, the researchers surveyed, 319 knowledge workers.
That's right, and collected a rich data set of 936 real-world examples of GenAI use in their daily tasks.
Okay, and they honed in on two main research questions.
Yes. First, RQ1. When and how do knowledge workers perceive they enact critical thinking when using GenAI?
When and how they think they're thinking critically.
And second, RQ2. When and why do they perceive increased or decreased effort for critical thinking due to GenAI?
Right. Does it feel harder or easier to think critically with AI? These questions allow them to move beyond just efficiency to the actual cognitive experience.
And they went to great lengths to design their survey to be really detailed, moving far beyond simple yes-no answers.
Okay.
They asked participants about the specific types of tasks they used GenAI for, categorizing them as creation, information, or advice. They also meticulously measured participants' self-confidence.
In their own ability.
Yes, in their own ability to do the task without AI, their confidence in the AI's capability, and also their confidence in their own ability to evaluate the AI's responses. 3 different types of confidence.
That's interesting.
And all of this was done while cognitively priming participants, which basically means before they started, the researchers made sure everyone was on the same page by giving them clear, practical examples of what critical thinking actually meant, according to Bloom's taxonomy.
So everyone had the same understanding of the terms.
Exactly. This deliberate preparation allowed the researchers to capture real nuances, to really dig into the specifics of how people were engaging their minds with these powerful new tools.
Okay, so the study surveyed hundreds of knowledge workers, gathered nearly 1,000 real-world examples. What did these professionals actually describe? How did they say they use critical thinking with GenAI? What does it look like in practice, when they're in the middle of their daily work?
Well, they consistently viewed critical thinking not as some kind of afterthought, something tacked on at the end,
Right.
but as the deliberate cognitive activities performed to ensure the quality of the AI responses and also to maintain their own intentionality while using the tools.
Intentionality. So being deliberate and in control.
Exactly, not just letting the AI completely take the wheel. And the study beautifully mapped these practices to 3 distinct phases of their GenAI workflow.
3 phases, okay.
Which shows how critical thinking is woven throughout the entire process, not just a one-off check at the end.
That makes perfect sense.
Yeah.
It's not just about what the AI spits out, but the whole iterative process.
Yeah.
So let's break down those phases. Where does it start?
It starts right at the beginning, even before the AI has done any heavy lifting. The first phase is goal and query formation, the art of asking.
The art of asking. I like that.
This is where you, the user, set the stage for the AI. Participants describe critical thinking here in 2 crucial ways. First, forming clear goals.
Okay.
Now, strikingly, only a handful of participants explicitly mention this, which might seem low.
Yeah, only 6 out of over 300.
Right. But it highlights a fundamental, often overlooked step. It's about taking a step back and defining what you truly want to achieve, rather than just firing off a vague prompt.
So thinking before you prompt.
Exactly. For instance, one participant, P140, was using ChatGPT to understand some complex code. He realized critical thinking meant first defining what my goal was and how I was going to achieve it. I had to first learn what was I going to use in order to make progress.
So it's about clarifying his own thought process first.
Precisely. It's not just about the AI, it's about clarifying your own objectives before you even engage the tool. Another great example came from P19, a teacher generating an image with Daily for a hand-washing presentation.
Okay.
She realized she needed to think critically about the image's true pedagogical purpose. She noticed the initial AI image was missing soap dispensers, kind of crucial for hand washing.
Ah, yeah, you'd think.
So by critically thinking about her real objective, she was able to refine her prompt and got a much better, more useful image that actually aligned with her teaching goals.
That makes a huge difference.
The second aspect within this initial phase, and this was more commonly reported, about 30 participants, was optimizing prompts.
Ah, prompt engineering, basically.
Oh, essentially, yes. This involves iteratively creating or revising prompts to get the desired response, clarifying the final deliverables for the AI. P97, an artist, put it nicely. She said she was reflective when it came to giving the correct prompts. In order to get the correct result, a correct description needs to be given.
Right. Garbage in, garbage out still applies.
It does, and it highlights an iterative process that can actually help you clarify your own thinking. The very act of trying to articulate precisely what you want for the AI forces you to be more precise and structured in your own mind.
It's like a self-feedback loop for your own intellect.
Exactly. You're learning to define your problem better by trying to explain it clearly to the AI.
Okay, so you've honed your prompt, you've clarified your goals,
Yeah.
primed the AI. What happens next? This feels like the most intuitive place for critical thinking to really kick in when you finally look at what the AI gave you.
Yeah, absolutely.
What specifically were people doing then?
This brings us to phase 2. Inspecting the response, the quality check. And you're right, this is where a significant amount of the critical thinking action happens. You're actively assessing the AI's output for its utility, its accuracy, its fitness for purpose.
Okay.
Knowledge workers here were rigorously checking if the output met specific criteria and whether the information was verifiable. They did this in several distinct ways.
All right, let's hear them.
First, they focused on ensuring quality with objective criteria. A substantial number, 125 participants, highlighted this.
So checking against clear, measurable requirements.
Exactly. Like whether generated code compiles without errors or if a specification document includes all the sections you asked for in the prompt. P278, creating a detailed spec doc for a client, described how she had to make sure each piece of text generated met the requirements of the client based on criteria in the prompt, like color palette, and people in photos, male, female, skin tone, etc.
Very specific checks.
Very. And another one, P308, using Claude to write web app code, had to make sure it runs without error and then observed how it functioned. It's direct, empirically verifiable quality control.
Okay, that makes sense. But not everything is objectively measurable, right?
Exactly. So participants also engaged in ensuring quality with subjective standards. About 77 workers mentioned this. This involves evaluating the AI's output against less concrete but equally vital standards.
Like what?
Like real-world feasibility, internal logic, maybe even ethical implications that the AI might not inherently grasp. For example, P297, working in social services, had to really think about whether the answer the GenAI tool gave me would be easily transferable to real-life situations. Not every company has the budget and necessary equipment.
Ah, applying that crucial layer of real-world constraints.
Exactly. Constraints the AI, trained on vast data sets, couldn't possibly understand without that human input. Similarly, P10, a Forex trader, used ChatGPT for strategy recommendations and then evaluated whether the stated ideas flowed logically within the complex, often counterintuitive world of financial markets.
So does it make practical, logical sense in this specific human context?
Precisely. It's about that nuanced judgment.
Okay, what else in this inspection phase?
A crucial high-stakes aspect is verifying referenced sources. About 23 participants specifically highlighted this, often because they were aware of AI hallucinations.
Right, where the AI just makes stuff up.
Exactly. Confidently fabricates information or even entire sources. So this means directly checking any sources the AI cites to ensure they're real and accurate. A lawyer, P147, using ChatGPT for legal cases, made a stark observation. AI tends to make up information to agree with whatever points you're trying to make, so it takes valuable time to manually verify.
Wow, that's a pretty significant burden, especially in law.
Absolutely vital vigilance, especially where accuracy is paramount and errors have severe consequences.
So checking sources is one thing. What else?
Even more commonly, and this was reported by 114 participants, over a third workers would cross-reference external sources.
So not just checking the AI's citations, but comparing its output to other information.
Exactly. Taking the AI's output and comparing it with other reputable sources, their own deep domain expertise, or maybe other trusted human experts. P133, a concert director, noted that AI-suggested repertoire was very American-centric.
Ah, a bias in the output.
Right, and she had to use her critical judgment to find repertoire that fits my reality and her local cultural context, which was far removed from the AI's default. Another great example, a nurse, P250, verified a ChatGPT-generated educational pamphlet against her hospital's official vetted diabetes management guidelines.
That's where human expertise perfectly complements the AI, acting as that crucial filter.
Yes, catching biases or inaccuracies the AI itself simply wouldn't recognize.
Okay, so you've carefully checked the AI's work, verified its sources, made sure it's logically sound, practically sound. But the process doesn't stop there, does it?
No, not yet.
What happens when you're actually taking that AI-generated content and putting it into your project, integrating it into your final piece of work? That feels like another layer of critical thought.
Indeed it is. This is phase 3, integrating the response, making it your own. This is where critical integration really comes into play, a concept highlighted by previous research.
Critical integration, okay.
Participants focused on either the content or the form of the AI's output here. First, they engaged in integrating partial responses. About 36 participants mentioned this.
Meaning just using parts of what the AI gave them.
Exactly. GenAI is fantastic at generating large volumes of information, often more than you need, but not all of it is equally useful or relevant. So critical thinking here means selectively choosing and incorporating only the most relevant and accurate parts, discerningly discarding the rest.
Sifting through it.
Right. For example, P188, an auditor, used ChatGPT to summarize her past work for her resume. She had to critically evaluate what would apply. The regulations mentioned, do they apply to the country I work in?
Tailoring it to her specific context.
The AI can give you a deluge of text, but you, the human, have to pick the useful bits that are applicable and accurate for your specific context and audience.
Okay, so selecting the right content. What about the form?
Second, and equally important in this phase, was modifying style for appropriateness, noted by 45 participants. This means adding your unique personal touch or adjusting the tone to perfectly fit the context.
Making it sound less like an AI wrote it.
Pretty much. Ensuring that AI-generated content sounds authentic to you or your organization, not like a generic AI draft. P210, for instance, revised his paper abstract with ChatGPT, but quickly realized he had to rephrase it with a scientific tone because often the AI writes awful stuff like, our groundbreaking and fundamental analysis shows. That sounds too emphatic for academic papers.
Right, you need that specific academic style.
And P254 made sure an AI-composed email did sound like an email that I had composed myself, avoiding that robotic or overly formal tone AI sometimes defaults to.
Here's where it gets really interesting, isn't it? This whole process. It's not just passive acceptance of AI output at all.
Not in the slightest.
It's an incredibly active partnership, but one where the human is unmistakably in the driver's seat, applying their judgment, their expertise, their nuanced understanding, even their personal voice. It really redefines what it means to be a knowledge worker in this new landscape.
It absolutely does. It's a much more dynamic interaction than maybe we initially thought.
This study gathered a truly impressive amount of quantitative data, which, as we know, often reveals surprising, sometimes counterintuitive patterns.
Yes, the numbers add another layer.
What do the numbers tell us about when people actually engage their critical thinking with these tools, beyond just the anecdotal examples?
It's a fascinating picture. Out of the 936 GenAI uses they analyzed, critical thinking was explicitly reported for about 60% of them.
Okay, so more often than not, but still a big chunk, 40%, where it wasn't happening.
Exactly, a substantial minority where critical thinking wasn't perceived or engaged. But the most significant findings revolved around confidence, and they reveal a truly interesting paradox.
A paradox. Okay, tell me more.
Well, first, and this is a truly surprising and I think critical finding, higher confidence in GenAI was strongly associated with less critical thinking.
Really? More trust in the AI means less checking.
Yes. This wasn't just a slight correlation. The data showed a powerful, undeniable link. It suggests the more users trusted the AI's capabilities, the less they perceived the need to scrutinize its output. It's almost like the AI's perceived competence lulled users into a cognitive comfort zone.
Wow. Okay. What about the other side of that?
Conversely, and this is where the paradox deepens, higher confidence in your own ability to do the task without AI and in your ability to evaluate AI responses was positively correlated with more critical thinking.
So confidence in yourself leads to more scrutiny of the AI.
Yes. This connection was not only clear, but also statistically robust.
That's fascinating.
And, as you might expect, a general tendency to reflect in one's work, basically. If you're already a thoughtful, reflective person, that also positively correlated with critical thinking when using GenAI.
So reflective people stay reflective, even with AI.
It seems so. If you're already a reflective person, you tend to maintain that approach.
So let me get this straight. If you feel good about your own skills, if you have strong domain expertise and confidence you can spot an AI's mistake, you're more likely to challenge the AI, dig deeper, push back, refine its output.
That's what the data suggests.
But if you just inherently trust the AI, maybe without that self-confidence as a counterbalance. You might lean back too much, taking its output at face value.
It looks that way. It's almost like self-confidence acts as a critical thinking booster, while maybe over-reliance on AI can suppress those critical faculties.
That's genuinely counterintuitive for many, I imagine. You'd think trusting the tool would be good.
It absolutely is counterintuitive. And your existing disposition for reflection also plays a big role, meaning our individual cognitive habits carry over into how we interact with these tools. These quantitative findings provide a crucial backdrop for understanding the qualitative insights into why people engage, or crucially, don't engage in, critical thinking.
Okay, so beyond just the numbers, the free text responses from the participants gave us incredibly rich insights into why people chose to engage their critical thinking. What were the driving forces? What motivated them to put in that extra mental effort?
3 main motivators emerged really clearly from the participants' detailed responses. First, and perhaps most intuitively, was improving work quality.
Making the output better.
Exactly. Many participants explicitly stated this. People were primarily motivated to actively fix and refine AI outputs that fell short of their professional standards or didn't quite hit the mark. For instance, P92 found ChatGPT's initial output for his company website way too cookie-cutter, full of cliché text and boring. I have to edit it a lot.
So the AI gave him junk, basically.
Well, maybe not junk, but generic. Not good enough. Similarly, P133, writing an executive summary, had to adapt the output to fit my needs because the AI does not understand the niche type of work I do.
Right. Human nuance is still needed for quality.
It highlights a fundamental human desire. Even with AI, the drive for high-quality, customized, truly valuable output remains paramount. The AI provides raw material, maybe, but the human refines it to excellence.
Okay, improving quality. What else motivated them?
The second major motivator was a powerful one, avoiding potential negative outcomes. This was a particularly strong driver cited by 116 participants, especially in high-stakes situations.
Fear of messing up, basically.
You could put it that way, yeah. People actively engaged critical thinking to prevent errors that could lead to serious, tangible consequences, whether professional or personal. P267, for example, writing pharmacist professional development documents, stated emphatically, the entry is to be submitted for review, so I would double-check to be sure, otherwise I might have to face suspension.
Wow, serious stakes there. That's a strong incentive.
Absolutely. The very real fear of professional repercussions or disciplinary action was a profound incentive for rigorous critical review. Another participant, P101, thoughtfully considered cultural sensitivities when preparing AI-generated work presentations for a supervisor from a different background.
Thinking critically to avoid social conflict or misunderstanding.
Exactly. The stakes clearly heightened their critical engagement.
Okay, quality and avoiding negative outcomes. Was there a third motivator?
Yes. Finally, though less frequently mentioned, only 13 participants, skill development was also a motivator for some.
Using AI to learn.
Exactly. These individuals saw AI not just as a tool for efficiency, but as an active opportunity to learn and improve their own skills. P154 used ChatGPT for code solutions, but crucially made sure that I understood how it works and can do it by myself next time.
That shows a proactive desire for genuine learning, not just a quick fix.
Right. And P176 described how he improved his email writing style by carefully breaking down AI-suggested corrections, which ultimately led to less correction needed in his own later emails.
That illustrates a really forward-thinking approach. Using the AI as a kind of mentor or learning partner.
Precisely. To enhance one's own capabilities.
Okay, so those are the motivators. But what about the flip side? What stopped people from engaging their critical thinking? What were the barriers that led to that, substantial 40% where critical thinking wasn't perceived as happening, where the AI's output might have just been accepted without much thought?
This is where we truly see the new ironies of generative AI at play, kind of extending Bainbridge's earlier concept. The study identified 3 major categories of barriers. First, awareness barriers.
They just didn't realize they needed to think critically.
Simply put, yes. People weren't always aware that critical thinking was needed or that there might be potential harms or inaccuracies in the AI's output. This manifested in a few ways. If the GenAI use was secondary to the main goal.
Like a minor part of a bigger project.
Right. Users might not scrutinize it much. P147 used DALL-E purely for a visual reference in a document, so there's no need to overcorrect. It wasn't the core deliverable, so the stakes felt low.
Okay.
Similarly, if the task was trivial, like generating quick social media posts, P239 mentioned that, or drafting routine meeting minutes, P271. Many users simply didn't see the need for deep thought. They defaulted to quick, uncritical acceptance.
Low stakes, low scrutiny. Makes sense.
But the biggest awareness barrier, directly aligning with our earlier quantitative findings, was overtrust and reliance on GenAI. This was a really significant finding, mentioned by 83 participants.
Trusting the AI too much.
Yeah. Prior positive experiences often led users to simply assume AI competence. P275 felt, it's a simple task. I knew ChatGPT could do it without difficulty, so I just never thought about it.
Which can lead to a dangerous overestimation of AI capabilities.
Absolutely. Some users assumed AI output was always truthful or accurately reflected data even when it wasn't. And importantly, self-doubt in their own abilities.
Ah, the flip side of self-confidence.
Right. For instance, P101 regarding grammar, or P204 for legal letters, that self-doubt led to default acceptance of AI. Users felt the AI was inherently more competent than themselves in certain areas.
So the human defers to the machine out of a lack of confidence.
Precisely.
This truly speaks to that irony again, doesn't it? If you never practice those critical muscles, even on trivial tasks where the stakes are low, do you eventually lose the strength for high-stakes ones, where critical thinking is absolutely essential?
It's a very real risk.
It's like if you always use GPS for every single journey, do you eventually lose your inherent sense of direction or your ability to, read a map?
It's a very apt analogy. The risk is that this cognitive offloading, while convenient for low-stakes tasks, could subtly diminish the very skills needed for high-stakes scenarios.
Okay, so awareness barriers. What was the second category?
The second category was motivation barriers. Here, critical thinking simply wasn't always aligned with immediate job priorities or organizational pressures.
Like it wasn't worth the effort given other demands.
Pretty much. The most common one, mentioned by 44 people, was a pervasive lack of time. Productivity pressures often overrode the desire for deeper engagement or rigorous scrutiny. P295, a sales development rep, used AI to save time and don't have much room to ponder over the result because she needed to meet daily quotas.
A stark trade-off between speed and scrutiny.
And speed often wins in those environments. And sometimes, verification simply was not part of job responsibilities. Only 11 mentioned this, but if the final check or rewrite was explicitly handled by someone else, people didn't feel the personal imperative to do it themselves.
Right. P232, writing marketing campaigns, noted, verification and rewriting is handled by another part of the team, effectively externalizing the critical thinking.
Exactly, someone else's problem.
Okay, awareness and motivation barriers. What was the third?
The third and final category was ability barriers. Even if users were motivated, some simply lacked the skills to effectively engage critical thinking with the AI.
They wanted to but couldn't.
In some cases, yes. Lack of domain knowledge to inspect was cited by 58 participants. If you don't possess sufficient expertise in the subject matter, how can you effectively verify the AI's answer? P290 found it hard to determine whether the AI is giving the correct answer or not in unfamiliar topics like complex legal translation or advanced math.
You just don't have the framework to challenge it.
Right. And finally, difficulty revising queries or improving responses was a significant hurdle for 72 participants. Even if they identified a problem in the AI's output, they struggled to prompt the AI effectively to get a better result.
They couldn't steer the AI properly.
Or they felt the AI was stubborn and difficult to correct. P239 candidly admitted, I'm not sure how I could have improved the text that ChatGPT wrote, and P208 found AI repeatedly recommended the wrong solution despite asking for a different suggestion, leading to frustration and ultimately maybe giving up on critical refinement.
Which points to a new critical skill gap, effectively talking to, guiding, and correcting the AI.
Absolutely. Prompting isn't just about asking, it's about dialogue and refinement.
So what does this all mean for us as knowledge workers? It sounds like generative AI is this incredibly powerful, efficient tool, but its very ease of use can sometimes lull us into a false sense of security.
It seems so.
And it can also, quite uncomfortably, expose gaps in our own ability to guide it effectively, or even to recognize when our critical faculties are being underutilized.
Yeah, it holds up a mirror in some ways.
It really highlights the need for a much more active, discerning, and ultimately responsible human role in this human-AI partnership, doesn't it?
Absolutely. It's not passive consumption. It requires active engagement.
Okay, one of the big, maybe headline-grabbing takeaways from the survey was that for most critical thinking activities, knowledge workers perceived a decreased effort when using GenAI.
Yes, that was a common perception.
On the surface, that sounds amazing, right? Less effort, more efficiency, more time for other things. But you hinted earlier that's not the whole story. It's much more nuanced than just easier.
No, it is absolutely not the whole story at all. While the majority of participants ranging from 55% to 79%, depending on the specific cognitive activity, did report less or much less effort for tasks like recalling facts, organizing ideas, or generating initial content.
Which sounds great.
It does, but there's a crucial, almost counterintuitive interplay happening. Our quantitative analysis, remember, showed that higher confidence in AI correlated with less perceived effort across most activities.
Right. If you trust the AI, it feels easier.
That makes intuitive sense. And here's where it gets really interesting. Higher self-confidence in one's own abilities actually correlated with more perceived effort in higher-level cognitive activities like application and evaluation.
Hold on. So if you're confident in your own skills and your own domain expertise, you feel like you're working harder with the AI, not less.
That's what the correlation suggests, yeah.
Genuinely counterintuitive for many people, I bet. Why would that be the case? What's happening there cognitively?
Well, it suggests that those with higher self-confidence aren't just passively accepting the AI's output. Instead, they are engaging in more active steering and rigorous, critical evaluation of AI responses.
They're taking more of an oversight role.
Exactly, acting as discerning editors and directors. And that active engagement, that careful guidance, that constant comparison of AI output against their own deep knowledge is perceived as more effort.
Because they're doing more cognitive work.
Precisely. They are constantly judging, refining, ensuring alignment with their own high standards. Those who just trust the AI inherently perceive less effort because they're simply accepting more, doing less active scrutiny.
So the work isn't gone. It's just that the nature of the work and therefore the effort has fundamentally shifted.
Exactly. The study describes this brilliantly as a shift from material production to critical integration. You're no longer just producing, you're orchestrating and refining.
That makes perfect sense. The effort isn't gone, it's just shifted from one type of cognitive activity to another. So let's break down exactly where these effort shifts are actually happening across the different phases of critical thinking, starting with the foundational levels, knowledge, and comprehension.
Right. For knowledge and comprehension, the primary effort shift moves from information gathering to information verification.
Less effort finding info, more effort checking it.
Basically, yes. AI significantly reduces the effort required for basic information retrieval and organization, which used to be a major time sink. Participants perceived less effort in information gathering. 111 participants highlighted how GenAI automates fetching info at scale in real time, drastically cutting down on manual searching.
Yeah, no more endless Google scrolling.
Right. P232 found market research via ChatGPT was immediate and at a sufficient level of detail, avoiding reading a lot of press reports and synthesizing it manually. P86 found LLMs produced organized answers compared to time-consuming web searches, presenting info neatly categorized and pre-summarized.
That frees up cognitive load dramatically.
It does. However, this incredible efficiency comes with a new and substantial burden. More effort in information verification. 56 participants noted this.
Because of the hallucination risk?
Primarily, yes. While getting information is easier than ever, the critical thinking required to ensure its accuracy has intensified. P147, the lawyer we heard from, lamented spending valuable time manually verifying legal info because AI tends to make up information.
So while the AI is fast, its potential inaccuracy means you must invest more cognitive effort in cross-checking everything.
Especially in high-stakes fields, the ease of generation is counterbalanced by the necessity of rigorous validation.
That's a crucial trade-off. Okay, so what about when you're using AI to actually do something, to apply knowledge to a specific problem or task? How does the effort shift there?
For application, the effort shifts from problem-solving to AI response integration.
From figuring it out yourself to making the AI's answer fit.
Pretty much. GenAI offers personalized solutions and applies examples in ways that significantly reduce the direct problem-solving effort for the human. Participants perceived less effort in problem-solving itself, 77 mentioned this, because GenAI tools provide personalized solutions very quickly.
Like the coding example.
Exactly. P154 found ChatGPT answered coding problems, quote, very fast and easily and mostly correctly, compared to what used to be time-consuming Google searches and forum checks. The AI quickly provides a plausible solution, circumventing much of the initial diagnostic and solution-finding effort. It can also adapt responses using user examples, like P268 using company scenarios, saving huge amounts of time.
But here's the catch, right? There's always a catch.
There often is. You still need to integrate that response effectively into your specific task, ensuring it aligns perfectly with your unique needs and existing workflows. This often leads to more effort in response integration. 19 noted this.
Making it truly fit.
Right. P51 found his AI-generated blog post required substantial editing to align with specific marketing guidelines and tone preferences the AI couldn't know. Sometimes, users even found adapting AI code to fit their existing code base was more effort than just doing it myself in the end, P36.
Especially if it didn't fit the existing style or architecture.
Exactly. So the raw output might be quick, but making it truly fit and function as intended requires significant human effort and critical adjustment.
Okay, this next one sounds like a really significant conceptual shift. This idea of moving from task execution to task stewardship for the higher level thinking. Analysis, synthesis, evaluation. What exactly does task stewardship mean here?
You've hit on the core of it. It's no longer about doing the manual execution yourself. It's about expertly guiding and overseeing the AI's processes while still retaining full accountability for the quality and integrity of the final outcome.
Like being the architect or the director rather than the laborer.
That's a great analogy. Participants clearly perceived less effort in scaffolding complex tasks and automating creation. For analysis, GenAI tools excel at helping break down complex problems and structuring information, providing a cognitive scaffold.
Helping you organize your thoughts.
Yes. P203 used ChatGPT for a complex Slack message, noting it broke down the problem, helping her think analytically about structure and clarity. For synthesis, participants widely reported automated drafting, documents, emails, code, required less effort. 129 noted this. The AI takes care of initial generation, often the most time-consuming part.
And for evaluation.
For evaluation, AI even offered personalized feedback loops, 40 mentioned, like comparing alternate text versions, P313, or giving confidence in areas like grammar where AI makes few mistakes, 19 mentioned. P239 noted, I can be confident that everything is spelt correctly. This reduces the burden of basic checks.
Okay, so less effort in some ways. But where does the more effort come in with stewardship?
Well, this shift simultaneously introduces new forms of cognitive effort, leading to more effort in articulating needs and steering AI. For analysis, users now need to become expert communicators, understanding how to articulate their needs and translate intentions into a query. 45 noted this.
The image generation example again.
Exactly. P24 described how image generation requires more effort for everything except the actual image generation. I have to think of what I want, then on how the AI wants it described, then correct it. The creative burden shifts from drawing to precisely describing.
And for synthesis?
For synthesis, there's a paradox. While AI automates drafting, there's a risk of reduced critical engagement if you just let the AI think the whole idea, P131. Also, constantly steering AI responses, 48 noted, with refined prompts adds effort. P110 found Copilot's answers prone to several diversions, needing constant redirection.
You're not just writing, you're actively course-correcting the AI.
Exactly. And finally, for evaluation, even with efficiency gains, users still faced increased effort, 42 noted, in judging AI content against various criteria. The final judgment, the ultimate quality check, the accountability, still heavily relies on human critical thinking and discernment.
What's truly fascinating here, and I think this is a major takeaway, is that the work isn't gone. It's simply changed in nature.
Precisely.
It's less about the heavy lifting of raw production and more about intelligent oversight, rigorous quality control, careful guidance. You are still unequivocally accountable for the final output.
Absolutely.
And that ultimate accountability drives a different but equally demanding kind of critical thinking. We're moving from doers to stewards. That's a profound cognitive transformation.
It really is. So given these profound shifts and the paradoxes we've uncovered, our findings suggest a very clear and frankly urgent design challenge for the developers of AI tools.
Okay, how should AI be designed differently then?
Well, since higher confidence in AI leads to less critical thinking, and conversely, higher self-confidence leads to more critical engagement, the question becomes, how do we design these tools to foster productive human engagement?
Ensuring that we, the users, remain active, discerning, and ultimately responsible.
Exactly.
And this isn't about somehow making AI worse, right? Or intentionally hobbling it to force us to work harder.
No, quite the opposite, actually. It's about making us better, more sophisticated users of AI, cultivating that discerning and critically engaged interaction.
Okay, so what are the design implications?
They're considerable. First, tools should incorporate clear feedback mechanisms that help you, the user, accurately gauge the reliability of AI output.
Like a confidence score from the AI.
Something like that, yes. This aligns perfectly with the principles of explainable AI, helping you understand not just what the AI produced, but why, how confident it is, and crucially, when to trust it versus when to apply your own critical thinking.
So more transparency.
Definitely. Imagine a confidence score with the text or a breakdown of its sources. Additionally, tools could offer explicit controls for you to regulate the level of AI assistance.
Letting you dial it up or down.
Yeah, depending on your own confidence, your expertise, the task's complexity, low-stakes email, maybe full automation is fine, critical client report, you want much more granular control. And crucially, the design itself must consistently reinforce that the human user remains ultimately responsible and accountable.
The buck stops with the human.
Always.
Okay, so beyond just confidence, the study pointed to those three key barriers: awareness, motivation, and ability. How can AI design specifically address those fundamental challenges?
These are critical areas for intervention. For awareness, designers can create proactive systems.
Like interrupting you.
Gently, yes, gently interrupting your workflow, subtly highlighting critical thinking opportunities you might otherwise overlook, especially in tasks you see as unimportant.
Smart nudges, maybe.
Yeah.
Have you considered this?
Exactly. Or this might benefit from cross-referencing. Conversely, reactive tools could let you explicitly request critical thinking assistance, like asking, "Can you argue against this point?" when you feel you need it.
Okay, what about motivation?
Well, the study showed people are motivated by skill development. So, GenAI tools could be strategically positioned not just as efficiency boosters, but as active partners in your long-term professional growth.
Shifting the value proposition from just speed to actual learning.
Right. Integrating features that highlight learning opportunities, track your progress in refining AI outputs, showing how your critical skills are improving. It fosters continuous improvement.
And finally, ability. This seems crucial if people lack the knowledge or skill.
It is perhaps the most crucial. If users lack domain knowledge or struggle to guide the AI, the tools themselves can be designed to empower them. They can incorporate features that actively facilitate learning, like clear explanations of AI reasoning. I suggested this because of X principle and Y data, or providing immediate suggestions for refinement. Consider rephrasing this for a formal tone. They could offer guided critiques, modeling how an expert might analyze arguments or cross-reference facts.
Transforming the AI from just an answer provider to a kind of personalized mentor.
That's the potential, yes. A powerful personalized learning tool.
So, given all these shifts and the potential for both cognitive gains and losses, what does this mean for how we as knowledge workers should fundamentally adapt and learn? It sounds like our own skill set needs a significant upgrade.
Absolutely. Given the profound effort shifts from gathering to verification, problem solving to integration, execution to stewardship, training programs need to evolve significantly.
What should they emphasize?
Practical, actionable skills in. First, information verification. Going beyond passive reading. Knowing how to effectively cross-reference, identify errors or biases, rigorously validate facts.
Becoming better digital detectives.
In a way, yes. Second, response integration. Mastering the art of assessing AI content for relevance, skillfully adapting its style and tone, seamlessly combining it with other sources for a high-quality final product.
Making it truly yours.
And third, especially task stewardship. This is the meta skill. Understanding how to effectively guide, monitor, course-correct AI processes while always remembering ultimate accountability rests with you.
Being the intelligent director of the AI's performance.
Exactly, not just a passive recipient.
And, perhaps just as importantly, ensuring that we never let those foundational skills, critical analysis, independent problem solving, original thought atrophy.
Absolutely vital.
Those skills might feel less necessary with AI handling routine stuff, but they are still crucial for those complex, high-stakes moments only humans can tackle.
Precisely. It's about staying cognitively sharp, actively avoiding over-reliance, ensuring the ironies of generative AI don't catch you unprepared. The goal is augmentation, elevation of human abilities, not passive replacement.
Becoming smarter with AI, not just faster because of it.
That sums it up perfectly.
Okay, like all good, robust research, this study also highlights crucial areas for future exploration, right? What are some things we still need to unpack as generative AI continues its incredibly rapid evolution?
Oh, yes. This is just the beginning of a long and vital research journey. The researchers noted participants sometimes conflated general effort reduction with reductions specifically in critical thinking effort.
Hard to separate those sometimes.
It is. Future studies could use more granular methods, like think aloud protocols, where people vocalize their thoughts as they work to better distinguish these two types of effort.
Get inside their heads a bit more.
Exactly. Also, this study used subjective confidence measures how confident you felt. Future work might explore the crucial link between subjective confidence and objective expertise, how confident you should be, versus how much you actually know.
That's a key distinction.
Very much so. Furthermore, the survey was conducted only in English-speaking contexts, so cross-cultural studies are urgently needed to see if these patterns hold true across different languages, cultures, educational systems.
Does this look different in Germany or Japan, for example?
We don't know yet. And finally, GenAI is evolving at a breathtaking pace. Longitudinal studies, tracking the impact over months and years, not just single instances, will be absolutely critical to understand long-term effects on cognition and professional development.
We're really just scratching the surface.
In many ways, yes. Hashtag tag outro.
Well, this deep dive has truly shown us that generative AI is far more than just a tool that makes tasks easier or faster.
It really is transformative.
It fundamentally shifts the very nature of our work, and crucially, how we engage our critical thinking. From meticulously shaping our initial questions to rigorously verifying the AI's answers and taking on this new demanding role as task stewards, our relationship with information and problem solving is undeniably evolving.
And if we connect this to the bigger picture, it means the true value isn't just in the AI's output itself, but in the human's informed, discerning, and critically engaged interaction with that output. The research highlights that fascinating paradox. The more confident you are in your own abilities, the more critically you seem to engage, paradoxically investing more cognitive effort in ensuring quality.
So it's not about AI making us lazy.
Not necessarily. It's about AI challenging us to be more deliberate, more discerning, more thoughtful in our new role as its guide.
So what does this all mean for you listening right now? As you continue to interact with these powerful, ubiquitous tools in your daily life, your work, maybe pause and ask yourself, am I simply offloading tasks? Am I passively accepting what the AI provides? Or am I truly engaging in task stewardship, actively guiding, questioning, refining, and ultimately taking full responsibility for the AI's output? Are you allowing these tools to truly enhance your critical faculties, pushing you to ask better questions, verify with more rigor?
Are you letting them lull you into a comfortable but potentially dangerous state of complacency, accepting outputs without sufficient thought or scrutiny?
It's a really important question to ask ourselves.
It is. Perhaps the next time you use GenAI for a project, you might take a moment to pause and reflect. Pinpoint one specific moment where you chose to think critically, or maybe where you realized afterwards you could have thought more critically.
Yeah.
Consider how AI might provide you with valuable, personalized feedback loops, or actively create those skill development opportunities within your own unique workflows. Remember, the goal isn't just surface-level efficiency.
It's about deeper understanding, greater mastery.
And maintaining your cognitive edge in an AI-powered world.
Join us next time for another deep dive into the fascinating world of knowledge, insights, and surprising facts. Until then, keep thinking critically.